This is the Hellion. This is the Hellion Rocks, and we got Steve Helmer on the line. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, James?
Excellent. You know, we talked several times before, and we talk continually. You're always busy. You've always got something going on, and you're one of the juggernauts in the music industry, I got to say. Get us up to speed, man. You've got all kinds of things happening. Just fill us in.
Yeah, but that's a tough call where to start. I've been working with a bunch of new bands, and I guess I have a list in front of me. I have to have notes in front of me, otherwise I'll forget somebody by accident. But I'm working with a band called Switchblock, and their new video, Rise Again, was produced by William Rocky Gray, which is pretty interesting in that Rocky had played drums for Evanescence for 5 years, and
yep.
That's a pretty big deal that they were working with him on the video production, and it looks a lot like a video game, and that it's just like super high resolution video game, but it's all so integrated with the band at the same time, and they're actually playing at the Hard Rock Cafe in Memphis, Tennessee tomorrow night, and their new release is going to come out on October 27th, so I'm pretty excited about working with those guys and having all those great people being connected to them and working with them and me at the same time. So the other band that I'm working with right now is Skin Jacket, who's signed to the Tape Music Group. And the big deal with them is they have an ad coming out on VH1 and MTV next month, and their release date on Tape Music Group is November 5th. So I'm real excited about the connections that all of these people have, and that they're working with labels, and the level of organization is a lot better than anything I've worked with in the past, and I feel like that's a big step up the ladder, so.
Absolutely, man. That's a cool thing. I've checked out those bands, and good job, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's the number one thing for me is that I start out as a fan of the music, and I get to know the people that I'm working with, and I could find fancier words for it, but I don't care how much money someone has. If I can't get along with them well, I'm not going to work with them, even if they have money, and I think it's being a manager is like being married to the band and being a parent at the same time, and my goal as a manager really has always been to raise the bands to the point where they don't need me anymore, or they get so big that a bigger management company will want to pick them up. And, it's all about trying to make them more visible on the radar. And that's what I consider my job,
Absolutely. And in this day with the industry in the state that it is, getting on that radar is a whole different world. It's a lot harder. Back in the day, A&R guys were like flies everywhere, hitting the clubs and all that with checks and checkbooks, and those days are gone, man. It's all about the corporate thing, and if the corporate world doesn't take an interest in you, they're not even going to bat an eye.
No, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, and that the operative two words are proven marketability, and the industry is not going to pay attention to anybody out there unless they've proven that they can market themselves, and that's a big change in that the labels used to do the marketing from bands that were unknown or unheard of, and and now in today's times, the labels expect the band to prove marketability before they'll invest any time or money in them. So, they're kind of like stockbrokers. They're looking around for the bands with the biggest numbers, and the biggest numbers are indication of proven marketability without a label or anybody. So, I agree
right.
completely.
And that makes it hard for, it's been something that's been stuck in my craw a lot lately, is the fact that, not only is there a lot of great new music with limited outlets, there's a lot of old music that's still relevant that, they've already flushed out the money from it, and they see no more marketability, and it's kind of going to go by the wayside. And that's unfortunate for a lot of the younger audiences, because there is some great quality music for them to learn off of that unless they seek it out or unless it's put in front of their faces, they're not going to know where to hear it.
No, really, and I consider that part of my job. It's like I said, it's building them up to the point where they will pay attention to it, and put it in the game with the people that they had been working with for a while. Probably the biggest change for me is working with bands that, their label deals are more like licensing deals, but, their materials are more organized and their videos are more professional looking. And, I think first impressions are important in that, I'm now doing a lot of booking too, and that agents just want to see a video, and that's pretty much all they want to see. What do they look like? What do they sound like? And then they look at the numbers and make a decision from there.
Yep, that's a true statement. The electronic press kits are the way to go. Any band now that really wants to be taken seriously has got to have all their online stuff ready to rock at a moment's notice.
I agree totally, and that it kind of takes me down a list here. I'm just kind of moving down a list of bands that I'm working with. Final Curse is the next band that I'd like to talk about, and that they won a contest from RockSolidPressure.com as the best new thrash metal band in the United States, and went down to Tampa a couple of weeks ago and played this huge industry showcase. And their latest release was actually produced by engineers from Devil Driver and Annihilator, which are really, really huge names in the metal world. And
right.
I'm just really proud to have those guys on the roster because their style of music is very much like the Kill 'Em All album. And you hear a lot of people ripping on Metallica these days, but people weren't ripping on Metallica when Kill 'Em All came out. It was like, yes, this is the greatest thrash metal ever. We love Kill 'Em All. And they've really done justice to bringing that style of music back with a more modern flair with, working with more modern producers, So I'm pretty stoked about those dudes.
Nice. Thrash metal, I've always been a fan. And, Metallica was one of the forerunners of the band, and like everybody else, they grow up and they change and they move on different, they have different things going on in their lives, and that surely is going to affect an artist's work.
No, I agree completely. That's a part of what I consider my job too, is to pay attention to the mental state of the people that I work for, I'm their friend too, and that becomes difficult at times because people do have problems, and people get in car accidents and they break their arms and they break up with their girlfriend, or they might go through a divorce and things that really affect their career. And I remember seeing a TV show about how literally the Metallica was going to a therapist because that's what it's like. They're married to each other and they're also married to me, so we're all we're married to each other. So we have to have a good marriage,
Yeah, I saw that movie too, and a lot of people, saw it in a negative light. And, in reality, that just showed that they're real people and that real things happen to them, real addictions happen, and, their mental states do change and are in constant flux. So, it just let us on the inside of what really happens. So whether it's good or not, that's not for us to say. That's just an insight to what's going on in their world.
Well, that's come up in a lot of conversations I've had with people about how personal you should be in interviews and how personal you should be on Facebook when you're a well-known artist. And the example I really like to give to people is Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx wrote his autobiography, and he was very candid about, heroin overdose underneath the Christmas tree, and he did not hold back about very personal things. And and people have a tendency to respect that, and I think that fans can really identify with artists if they're putting themselves out there as human beings. They're not they're not action figures. They're actual human beings. So that's something that I always respect, that artists do put themselves out there as a human being, and, I do the same thing myself. I have bad days and good days too, and I don't always put myself out there as shit and rainbows,
Yeah, man. I hear that. I'm the same way, and, I think, hearkening back to the early days when, everything was just in print, when we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have the internet. These guys were larger than life to us, and they were in a separate world and a separate entity. And that was always held that way. And now, it's a different it's a different world altogether, and now we find ourselves identifying with these people. You know, we find ourselves with the same common problems and the same commonality, and it furthers the identification, you know. Wow, you know, that's the headspace he was in when he wrote that song. That's how I feel. And I think that, you know, while it does have its detractions, it also has its pluses.
I agree. Totally.
And that's, you know, that's the world we live in, you know, up to the minute, day-to-day things. And you know, that's the way people have changed. You know, I'm an older person, and the way people have changed now, seeing the younger people, they're flashbang now, you know, and then they move on, and then they move on. So you've got to keep the interest. You've got to, if you're in this game, the music industry, you've got to be consistent. You've got to stay day to day. You've got to keep it in people's heads, or they're going to lose interest really quick. And it's just the sign of the times, man.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that too. And then, you know, I was encouraged. I would see a lot of Facebook page, and they're not, you know, actively maintaining that stuff. And you know, I think success in the music industry really comes down to being humble enough to just really step out there and talk to your fans and thank them and show how much you appreciate them. And I've said it many times before that once you've really gained a genuine fan, you generally you've gained a fan for life, you know. And
right.
I can honestly say I'm still a Metallica fan, and I'm still a Crowbar fan, my favorite band of all time. You know, I bought their first records when they first came out. I can't wait to hear their new record, and I'll be their fan until the day I die, as long as they're around. And even if they broke up as a band, I would continue to be a fan. So, you know, I'm on the same page with you for that, for real.
It's funny. I saw a post you put the other day, and you were asking what band impacted you or something along that line. And I noticed you put Crowbar, and I happened to put the Beatles up. And, you know, it's interesting to see the little questions you put up and the answers people come up with. That shows that you're staying in touch with, you know, with your consumer base or your demographic. You know, that's a cool way to do that.
Yeah, you know, I can't say I wasn't influenced by bands in the 70s because I grew up in the 70s, you know, and my first music books were the Beatles Complete 1 and 2. So, you know, my very first learning to play the instrument were learning Beatles songs, and they obviously had a huge impact. And my mom listened to the Beatles, and she was all about them and the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry and the 70s acts. But I think a lot changed for me hearing the really early Crowbar stuff, and that I started tuning my own guitar super low. And, you know, Pantera was really coming to light during that time too. And, you know, never to discount Pantera because I'm a huge Pantera fan, but the thing about Crowbar that really appealed to me is that the songs were about songs and there were no guitar solos at all. It was just all about this great riff and this great arrangement of the song and really meaningful lyrics minus any kind of, you know, there wasn't a guitar god in Crowbar. They were just, you know, they were all about the song. So I think that, you know, not the guitar solos are bad, but they need to serve the song. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great, Crowbar is one of the, you know, a great band that I enjoy as well. You know, speaking of no guitar solos, that's like, I can harken that to, you know, AC/DC's drummers. They don't really have any drum fills. It's, you know, solid backbeat and straight up blues rock and roll. Yeah, exactly. You don't need overflash sometimes. So very cool, man. You know, you've got, you know, you said Crowbar, and, you know, that kind of stoner doom, gloom kind of metal stuff, you know, I enjoy that too. And here recently, I started listening to, you know, I grew up listening to The Doors. Jim Morrison's always been like an inspiration to me. And I started listening to some of The Doors' back catalog with a different mindset. And that's some heavy doom stuff right there, man.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, that's kind of what happens in that, you know, you play back the soundtrack to your life. And once you've rewound the soundtrack to your life, the stuff that you listened to when you were really young, you can appreciate it more because you're listening to it in a different way, in a more mature way, I guess, for lack of better words. And, you know, it always makes me think of Greengrass and High Times from the Outlaws, and that I love that song. I mean, to me, that's like the quintessential Southern rock song of all time. and it's like 8.5 minutes, super long song, and but listening to it now, having progressed as a player too, I mean, I learned to appreciate the value of the arrangement in the song, and I don't know, it's a different perspective listening to something that you listened to back then and just revisiting it, and I think a lot of artists really should do that, and that sit down and make a list of things you listened to when you were 5 years old and go back and listen to them.
Right. That's very cool. That's a good idea, good retrospective. So moving on, man, what else are you working on? I know you got some surprises coming out, some announcements, but what else you got going on, man?
Well, I've moved down the line. I'm working with Our Precious Demise, who's based out of Louisiana.
Love that man.
And they have a female singer, which is a pretty interesting thing, in that I think Kat really stands in the ring with a lot of guys, and they have kind of a Pantera meets Arch Enemy sound to them, with a really groovy groove to them, and they're working on a new album down in Louisiana right now, so they're kind of more or less on a hiatus while they work on the album. So I don't have a lot to talk about them by way of shows and stuff, but they did just they opened for Scar the Martyr, which is Joey Jordison's side project, which is a big deal for them, and that's what's going on with them. They're moving right along, and they've been with me about 10 months now. So it's all about artist development. Things take time, and they've ended up to #1 on the charts in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I think that says something about their fans really love them, and I do as well, for sure.
Very cool. That's awesome. Our Precious Demise. I check those guys out. I think I did a written interview with them, and it turned out good. Got a lot of good hits. So they're definitely a band to be watching out for.
Yeah, they're growing all the time, and it's like we say, bands are always growing and progressing, and their early albums might not be as stellar as their sophomore releases or moving on. That's the thing about me, is that I like to work with bands that are really developed and have labels and professional videos and maybe 1 or 2 releases and have been more developed, but I find a lot more satisfaction in taking a band that doesn't have any release at all. They've never done anything. They've never played out of the states that they live in, and trying to, I call them the first times ever. Like I just booked Skin Jacket and Final Curse for their very first time ever in Chicago, and they're both in North Carolina right now. So, I have to ask myself, when I decide to work with somebody, can I really benefit them? And if they've not been able to get out of the area that they live in for 5 or 10 years, and I try, make the move of getting them the first time ever, I feel like I've really benefited their career,
Right. That's a problem with a lot of local bands. Everybody, I keep seeing people post, support the local scene, support the local scene, support the local scene. That's fine and good, but keeping bands in their local scene doesn't do them any justice. You got to take into heart that any national act is a local band somewhere that got out of that local area. So,
no, you're absolutely right, and I think that I agree with you completely. And that support local music, does that mean keep them prisoners to the city they live in? And it's interesting because years ago I had a discussion with somebody online who had a group called Support Local Music. And I literally debated with them that it shouldn't be called Support Local Music. They should remove the word local from it and call it Support Music. And that group now has 100,000 members.
Yeah, nice. The town I live in, Albuquerque, it's not that, it's a big town, but it's not a huge town, So, if you've got, you really can't afford to play every weekend at a different venue in Albuquerque, because then, I'll catch them next weekend, or, I've already got their shirt, I've already got their CD. It's not going to really benefit that band. It's not like, Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles area, where you could play a different club every weekend in a different part of Los Angeles and have a different demographic, different audience. That's doable out there. But here, in the rest of the United States, you've got to take and be serious about it or not, and get out and take that step.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for a lot of bands to want, to not play too, and that, there's that gratification of people standing in front of them really getting into their music and coming to their shows, and, that becomes like a drug. You know, they become
Right.
junkies with playing live, and they'll play anywhere for any amount of money, and they'll play it, 5 miles down the road or 10 miles down the road consistently, only because they're addicted to that rush. And my thing really is that I break the year into quarters. The first 3 months of the year, I think they should be writing their music. The second 3 months of the year, they're marketing it to 7 billion people, which is a tall order to market an entire planet. And most musicians don't consider the amount of time it takes to infiltrate a planet of 7 billion people. And they think in terms of their state or their county that they live in. And then the last 6 months out of the year, they're supporting their release with live shows. So really what they wind up doing is playing shows 6 months out of the year and doing marketing and recording and writing the other 6 months out of the year. And that's proven to be a great marketing plan, because that's what Lamb of God does, and that's what Slayer does, and that's what Testament does. They play one tour a year in support of a record that was, created in the beginning of the year. It just that's kind of my angle on things, is look at what the big dogs are doing and follow suit with the big dogs.
Yep, I agree 100%. But one of the new releases that I actually just wrote about that did really good for me was I was fortunate and got an advanced copy of the new Kill Devil Hill record, and
right on.
It's their sophomore release, and it's a kick-ass record. Those guys got it figured out, and they're on tour right now. They put the album out, and they're out supporting it. It's out the 29th, I think, of October, Revolution Rise, and it's a great record. And, I wrote the review on it. I was very fortunate. Got a pre-release copy, and heard back from the band that I hit it right on the head, and it was cool. And their publicist actually said, you got the first CD review, and they get it, man. They're like you. They're not a huge band, but they know they've got the formula down. They're out hitting the road, playing small venues, but they're getting it. So yeah, I agree. They put a record out and have something to support.
Yeah, I did catch some of the still video shots from their new video shoot that they got going on, and they're always going to have the Pantera recognition with Rex in the band.
Yeah.
And, not to say that they're ever riding off that, because they never are. I mean, they've got great talent aside from that. So, yeah, I totally agree. I've said it one time, and I think I said it in an interview with you before, and that success in the music industry is based on a well-timed release that fits the needs of the current market. And that sounds all dry and everything, but the operative word is well-timed. And I see a lot of bands, they play their whole album in a local area for 6 months straight, and then they go to the studio to record the album, and everybody's heard the song. So there's really no anticipation in hearing the songs, because everybody in that demographic has heard all of the songs live already before they ever went to the studio. And if they could try to reverse that process of playing the songs live before they're recorded and released, and that they would benefit greater from it. Totally.
That's a true statement, man. If the songs are old and tired to people already, they're not going to want to go get it. They want something fresh and new. And I agree, man. That's the perfect way to go. Let's segue into something else too. I know a lot of older bands that have a large back catalog. They're putting out new records, and what I want to know is what your feeling is on, are they still relevant? Can they still be relevant?
I'm glad that you asked me that question, because I actually played a show in New York opening for the Almighty Anvil. And if there ever was the greatest comeback story of all time, there it is. Because they completely blew me away. They hadn't played forever, and they had not lost anything, and they're bigger than they've ever been. So I think that it's a good thing. Why go away? I mean, playing music is really in your blood, and there's no such thing as retiring. It's better to burn out than fade away, like Neil Young says. And I think true musicians are always just going to burn out. They're never going to fade away. They're just going to keep going and going and going and going until they fall over. And, like Rob Halford, he's getting up there in years. And I know Lemmy, they've seen it several times that Lemmy's quite ill, but, that's the true spirit of music, is keep doing it and until you just fall over.
Well, I do. The reason I asked that question is the fact that and I've said this on a couple other reviews, and I think I pissed off some people. I recently caught Iron Maiden on their Final Frontier tour when they put that album out a couple of years ago, and the songs were great. I was digging them. They're Iron Maiden, classic Iron Maiden. But the new tracks when they were playing them, I'm forever looking at what people are doing, what they're listening to, and it's just the nature of who I am. I looked at the crowd, and when the new songs were playing, they were texting. They were tying their shoe or talking to somebody or going to get a Coke or a beer or whatever. And when the old tracks played, I Run to the Hills and Number of the Beast, yeah, and they woo. And when they played a new track again, and it was like, oh, whatever, dude. So, it really sucks that you've got bands like that, like Black Sabbath. They put that new album out, 13. I dig it, but it didn't. It's an average Black Sabbath album. So where I was going with that is,
I'm probably going to get burned at the stake for saying this too. And I like the new Black Sabbath album, but I can't say that I totally love it.
Right.
On a scale of 1 to 10, it wasn't a 5. It wasn't average 5, but I mean, it made it into the 6.5 range, and I thought it was good. I want to hear the vintage tone of Tony Iommi and the vintage sound of them, and I think that there was just too much modernness in it, and it came across as too modern to me. So, not that I like the writing style of everything on the record. I think a lot of it has to do with the tone, and the fact that I'm a recording engineer makes me kind of jaded in that, I recognize the difference between vintage and modern immediately. So, it's hard for me to adjust that record based on that,
Yeah, that's cool you said that about being an engineer, because I was really excited when I heard Rick Rubin was involved, because I've always been a Rick Rubin fan of stuff he's done. However, he has disappointed me recently with 3 albums. The new Chili Peppers record, I've always been a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. I always liked the work he's done with them. Their new record was it was all right. The new Death Magnetic album by Metallica was okay. And now the new Black Sabbath album was okay. And I don't know what's going on with that, but Rick Rubin was always one of my top-notch producers.
Yeah, I think engineers are very much like musicians, though, and that people talk about the evolution of Metallica, the difference between Kill 'Em All and all their newer stuff, and how different they are in the spectrum. And as an engineer, it would become redundant to, break out a JCM 800 hashtag every single time you make a record, and
right.
The whole idea is to evolve as an engineer, too, and try different things and, break out some strange amp that just came out last year that some guy built on a bench in a third world country or something, and use that on the record to just, try to get new sounds out of an artist that's been around for a long time. So I can kind of step into those shoes because I approach recording music that same way myself, and that a band might want to bring in their own gear to record a record, but I would be like, no, you got to use this particular amp on this clean part in this song, and it might change the whole dynamic sound of the band by doing that. So I guess in that realm, they're really taking orders from who the producer is because he's getting paid large to do it. So, he's the boss.
Yes. That's right. I can agree with that too, man. You got to move forward a little bit, but you've got to draw that fine line between alienating your hardcore fans and making some new fans. So yeah, I keep an open mind with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I got to stop for a second and give a big shout out to Sterling Winfield too, and that
yeah, man.
A few years back, I had the opportunity to actually be recorded by him, and I'll talk about the greatest honors of my entire life. To watch him mic drum sets and get sounds and tweak the knobs, so to speak. It was pretty cool. I just want to stop for a second and give him a shout out in this interview. Great guy, super down to earth, and what a humble guy for how awesome he is. Totally.
Yeah, Sterling's a great cat, man. I've talked to him a couple times on Facebook. Never met him, but we've had a couple of little brief Facebook mentions, and it's cool to see somebody working like that. He's actually I think he's going to work a little bit on the new Crown by Fire record, so I'm excited to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool.
Yeah, I can either confirm or deny that he'd be working with any of my bands, but I have been speaking with him recently, so I'll leave it at that.
There you go. Leave it at that, too.
Cool.
You know, so,
go ahead.
Stevil Helmer, you've got some new music, right, that you got to get out. Am I correct in thinking that?
You know, I'm trying to stay in the game, and I tell people that I'm in the minor leagues now. I'm not trying to get in the major leagues. But, you know, once I'm a metalhead, I was a metalhead, and I'm actually still working with the singer from Die Hard Till Death, Kenny James Morgan. I got Dean Davenport, who was the drummer of the Razorblade Dolls for quite a few years. And my big star in the solo project that I'm working on a single for is Dave Bizzigatti from A Pale Horse Named Death. And that's huge for me, and that it just was a fluke. He said something on his Facebook page one day, and I cracked a joke about him having too much time on his hands, and he needs to play bass on my single. And he responded to my comment with, "Sure, I'll do it." Next thing you know, I'm corresponding with him by phone, and he's sending me the bass tracks, which I already have for the song Ivory Towers, that I'll be releasing at the first of the year. And he's on tour with Danzig right now, so you know that's a huge deal for me. And Pale Horse Named Death, not everybody knows it, but it's actually members of Type O Negative, and you know that's just having him on my stuff is a big deal for me. And you know, I'm excited about, you know, being in the minor leagues and still doing something. And I don't know if I'll ever do anything live with it, but I still got to write music, and it's kind of like breathing for me. So there you have it.
That's cool. You know, I like that A Pale Horse Named Death when they came out. I like that record, and you know, it's cool. I got excited when I saw you were going to be working with them. So I wanted to get that out.
Yeah, I think, you know, the world needs more one-of-a-kind bands, and Jerry Garcia said it once. You don't need to be the best of the best. You just need to be the only one. And, you know, I think Pale Horse Named Death and Type O Negative are very much one-of-a-kind bands, and that they're not often compared to other bands, you know.
Right. They had that, you know, there was a lot of sound-alikes or try to sound alikes, but people never really quite got it with Type O. And, you know, you're definitely right on that, one-of-a-kind band.
Exactly. I mean, like thrash metal bands, you know, Metallica and Megadeth are compared to each other a lot, and you know, I think you get my point for sure.
Yeah. To me, they're going to be two distinctly different bands. You know, I think that Mustaine did his best he could to get away from that Metallica sound and develop his own. He did a good job.
No, I agree totally. I totally agree. He made himself an individual. And, yeah, you know, if I had to lean one way or the other, I mean, I've personally been more influenced by Dave Mustaine's writing style because he's not, like, really a super formally trained player. He's a great individual about how he plays, and he doesn't sound like he's playing out of a book. And,
right.
You know, and that's what I like about him. That's what I love about Hendrix. Hendrix never sounds like he's playing out of a book. He sounds like he's playing out of his soul when you hear the record, and to me, that's what a great record is.
Yep, perfect. I agree, too. And I kind of lean toward the Megadeth camp as well. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking to Steve Helmer. This guy got his pulse on the music industry. He never dies, never sleeps, always up doing stuff. You know, tell us what else you got planned, man.
Yeah, well, I'm moving down my list here. I had to make a list, so I didn't neglect to speak about anybody. The next band I wanted to talk about is the Black Cross Brotherhood, who's out of West Virginia. And, you know, I could call these guys a supergroup, but they're not really a supergroup because they've all known each other forever, and they've all jammed in other bands together, and they all still jam in other bands together. And the thing that's really cool about them is they have, like, this kind of a Black Sabbath-y sound to them, but the other bands that they play in are, like, outlaw country bands. So, like, 1 minute they're playing old Hank Williams Sr., and the next minute they're playing something that sounds way super heavy, like Crowbar meets Black Sabbath. And there's just such talented band, and that both of the guitar players in the band sing really well. So, I mean, I think that's an unusual thing in that, you know, a lot of times there's just one guy who handles majority of the singing stuff. And, Black Cross Brotherhood, that both of the guys playing guitar are just, phenomenal singers and phenomenal guitar players in one band. And, I just want to make mention of them. They're working on their new record in West Virginia. They're going to do a video for Hillbilly State of Mind, and they're just very genuine, been musicians their whole life, and try to be diverse as musicians and play tons of different styles of music and still be metal at the same time. So
nice, man. That's cool. That's another band that you recently turned me on to that I'm really digging. So thanks for that.
Hey,
we're listening.
Right on, right on. I guess the last and final thing is, I want to throw a big shout out there for In the Pit for the Pit, the 4th year of the Pitbull fundraiser that we do in Dallas, Texas for Villalobos, which is the largest Pitbull rescue in the world. And Justin Manning, as you made mention of Crown by Fire earlier, Justin Manning is actually going to come down this year by himself. He's coming to the show, and he's going to make a guest appearance with Black Summer Rain, which is formerly called Hellgoat. So I'm really excited about them making an appearance with Hellgoat at the same time. And Alpino, to me, is like, I wrote a song called Jalapeno. It's about him. He's a Texas legend, and Justin's obviously a wicked smoking guitar player, and the thought of the two of them on stage together performing a one-time thing that will never, ever be seen ever again is a really cool thing. And that's going down on November 8th and November 9th at the Boiler Room in Dallas. So that'd be cool.
Awesome, man. Being busy, keeping people in the loop on things, just showing people new music. Definitely, I'm glad to be part of your circle. I'm glad to be part of what you got happening and going on, and I'm really grateful you called in to the Hellion Rocks today, and we're 100% behind you, brother.
Yeah, man, we can't live without you, and that people wouldn't know the things that I have going on and about the bands that I work with. If there weren't guys like you running around, genuinely putting things out there that deserve the light, So you carrying the flashlight, James. We appreciate you, man.
Awesome. I appreciate you, too, and thanks for the shout-outs on that. Steve, it's been great talking to you. We're going to definitely stay in the loop. We'll definitely do this again anytime you're ready, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Sounds great, man. Thanks so much for the interview, James, and you have a great night, all right?
Cool, man.